At least that technology always works. And we'll see what happens this week, what surprises technology will have for us. But fingers crossed, we'll get through it. Tēnā koutou te whānau o Auckland Unitarians. Tēnā koutou nā manahiri. No mai, hire mai ki tēnei whare karakia a te atua tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Oh, you're getting so good at that. Welcome once again to all from near and far to our sanctuary. This morning I offer this poem by Chip Rausch about growth as a response to unavoidable change. Deeper than DNA, more fundamental than molecules or quarks at our living core, we are wholeness and transfiguring love. We often forget that power, becoming lonely or resentful, comparing ourselves to others, acting out of our fears rather than our living our glory. Occasionally, we rouse from our trance to remember our wholeness. For a time, we embody unsentimental love. We make efforts to wake others and to remain fully present ourselves. Our lives and our time here together are made sacred by our striving. For the rest of our lives, may we be more aware of the spirit of life evolving through and among us. So may we be. Here today, in this place and with these people, may we listen so that we can hear. May we hear so that we can feel. May we feel that we can know. And may we know that we can change ourselves and this world. May this chalice be like our living. Please join me in the covenant of our congregation in your order of service. Love is the doctrine of the church. Quest for truth is the sacrament, and service is the prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve in mind and fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus we covenant with each other and with God. Well, those of you who were here last week know we struggled a little bit trying to learn a new song. But thanks to Lynn Farr and the singing group, they're going to come up here and sing it once, and then we're going to try our hands at singing it together. We're going to learn this if it kills us. Singing group, come forth. They're not all here. Where are they? Oh, okay. Okay, it felt stronger and more confident up here. We'll keep working on it down there, but heck of a lot better than last week. I'd now like to invite our children to come forward. Progress. So, Lair, who do you think that is up there? A what? A beetle? Can anybody help? Go ahead. Humpty Dumpty. Do you know what happened to Humpty Dumpty? Yes. What? He had a great fall, didn't he? Well, that's, we think, the end of the story, when all the king's men couldn't put it back together. But there's more to it. This is a story about how Humpty Dumpty got back up. My name is Humpty Dumpty. This was my favorite spot, high up on the wall. I know it's an odd place for an egg to be, but I love being close to the birds. Why do you think, Lair, you like to be close to the birds?
He likes being close to the birds?
Yeah, why? I can't hear you.
Because they have beautiful songs.
Well, they have beautiful songs, but what is he? An egg. And where do eggs come from?
Chickens.
Chickens. And birds. Yeah. Yeah. Then one day I fell. I'm sort of famous for that part. Folks call it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand. It was just an accident, but it changed my life. After that, oops, there we go. Fortunately, all the king's men managed to put me back together again. Well, most of me. There were some parts that couldn't be healed with bandages and glue. Any idea what that might be? Afraid of heights. I was so scared they kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. What's wrong? Oh well, it wouldn't be Sunday if the technology didn't always work. I walk past the wall every day and that ladder again. I really miss the birds. Why is it doing that? I really miss the birds and being high above the city, but I could never do it because I knew that accidents can happen. Making planes was harder than I thought. Something's going to screwy here. There we go. I eventually settled for watching the birds from the ground. It wasn't the same, but it was better than nothing. Then one day, an idea flew by. What flew by? A paper airplane. Making planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches. But day after day, I kept trying and trying until I got it just right. It's a pretty fancy bird, paper plane, huh? The biplane was perfect and it flew like nothing could stop it. I hadn't felt that happy in a long time. It wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds. Unfortunately, accidents happen. Like that. A little compassion, empathy would go unremarked on. Come on. There we go. You may recall accidents happen. They always do. I almost walked away again, but then I thought about all the time I'd spent working on my plane and all the other things I'd missed. I just decided I was going to climb that wall. But the higher I got, the more nervous I felt. I didn't want to admit it. I was terrified. I didn't look up, I didn't look down, I just kept climbing, one step at a time, until I was no longer afraid. Yay for Humpty. Maybe you won't think of me as that egg who was famous for falling. Hopefully you'll remember me as the egg who got back up. Uh-oh, what happened here? And learned how to fly. What do you think happened?
A bird flew and hit him and cracked him right open.
No.
It looks like that.
Humpty hatched. Yeah. Somebody out there didn't get it either. Humpty hatched and flew. Pretty exciting, huh? Life begins when you get back up. So, that was our accidents for the day. But we got through it anyway, right? We got back up, we kept turning the page. Do you have any joys or concerns this morning? I couldn't hear you. I still couldn't hear you. That's a no. Shall we sing you off? Okay. I now invite you to come forward and share any joys or concerns you've had this week.
My name's David. I have two joys, which is a little unusual for me. First was that I came to a concert here on Thursday night that Karina helped organise with some renters, and it was absolutely stunning. And it was a bunch of musicians playing the violin. I've heard contemporary music of different kinds. Well, if you think of Beethoven here and contemporary music here, this was kind of way over here somewhere, because I'd never heard the violin making such weird noises, but it was completely wonderful. So that was lovely, and they acknowledged what a beautiful place this is to hold a concert. Really nice to see the church with about as many musos as we've got here now. That was lovely. My second joy is having heard just overnight that the G7 have announced that they're going to look at imposing corporate tax rates all around the world to save the big multinationals getting off with money that they don't really deserve. I think that's marvellous.
Good morning, my name is Pien. This is a, well, I don't know how to call this. It's not a candle of joy, but it is also not a candle of concern or sadness. My father passed away 2 weeks ago at the age of 91. So I think it's a good age. I think it should be a joy. He had a very good life, satisfying life. It was a beautiful ending to his life, very dignified. And I think, however sad it is that when you lose somebody, I still think we need to celebrate life as it is, and especially when somebody's had a blessed life like my father, we should celebrate that. So that's for him.
Thank you, Pam.
Good morning. My name is Shireen, and this is a candle of gratitude. Many of you know that my brother David died 3 weeks ago. I don't have any family in Auckland, but I have been so wonderfully supported by the warmth of this community in particular. So it's a candle to say thank you to all of the members of this church, because I've really felt supported, especially with my circle group and my wider friends in the community too. So I've been very touched and felt very supported. So thank you, the warmth of our community here.
Kia ora koutou. This is a candle. This is a candle for the joy of irony. Last week I wasn't here, and Clay, at the beginning of Joys and Concerns, reminded people that this is live streamed and counselled against oversharing. And then he lit a candle for me because I was sick, and he told you that I looked like hell. And then he preached on trust and the importance of trust, and I would like to just acknowledge all of you, because none of you told me, so he could trust you.
Hello, I'm Jos. I'm lighting this candle for Bruce Tasker. He's talking to Bruce and Lynn yesterday, and he's gone downhill quite a lot. And but I talked to him, and he said he's very cheerful. He's very positive. So most of you know what afflicts him. So I'll just light a candle for Bruce.
Well, in St. Augustine, we use stones in a dish. I guess there's stones here, but candles are, I guess, more appropriate for winter, although they're starting to feel a little scary with all these candles. So my first kind of reflection, which kind of ties in, ironically, with a few others, is all the whānau that have been separated, whether it be in the UK or Tonga or Michigan or Florida, for, 18 months now anyhow. Kidding. And then the second part of it is, kind of going into the family you can surround yourself with if your family isn't here, which in my case over the last 6 months for my son has included Russell Coots and Nathan Atteridge, who's a super top world sailor, and Francesco, that was the helmsman for the Italian America's Cup boat. He got to spend time with up in the Bay of Islands. And I guess the concern is my visa expires on Tuesday. So if there's anyone with any thoughts about that, I'd be
Hi, I'm Vivian. I'm lighting a candle for Alexandra. Is she here? No. If she was here, I was going to light it because she thought she might be able to make it. Alexandra has not had the best of health lately, but she was hoping to make it today. But obviously it's been a bit too difficult for her, so our thoughts are with her.
Once she gets going, she's okay. Morning, I'm David, and today I'd like to light a candle of joy. It's for a project that I've been working on for about 6 months and is now just about ready to go. I was in a campaign until last October. This thing's not working. Oops. And we were hoping to get a court case in Auckland to deal with religious bias in state schools, and we lost that case without it ever getting to court because of technicality. And so the people who were in that campaign appeared to be all very dejected about that, so much so that on the Secular Education Network, people are hardly even writing anything there anymore. And so I thought I'd like to take this out into a wider circle of interest. And so I've been working on it for the last 2 months, setting up a website to discuss this and other public issues. And as of about yesterday, the website works. It's, I'm very pleased with it. I got it through Wix, who design sort of do-it-yourself websites. And it's quite fun actually just designing it. Some of the stuff that I've put on it so far are things that I've talked about here, but I'm having to bring a lot of new issues, political and religious and scientific and inspirational thoughts from people from other religions. So have a look if you like. It's all, the stuff that's on it now is mostly stuff was written 6 months ago, but I'm hoping to get it cracking properly in the next week or two. It's called Wesley's Chair, because the inspiration for this came from John Wesley. When he got kicked out of the Anglican Church, he didn't let him get him down. He went and started preaching in the open air. And in the open air, nobody could see him because he's only about this tall. So he took a chair with him and stood on this chair, and people came to listen to him. So my website is called wesley'schair.net, and it's only just got going this last week.
I light this candle partly a joy for having my first COVID shot and having almost no reaction. I think the second one go as well. And grateful for the opportunity to have one as I worry about those in places like India, which, and even Melbourne, it's not easy for me to offer concerns for Australians, but I'm working on it. So, and I light that candle also for those joys and concerns in our hearts and minds, but are unspoken. I'm lowering the screen because we're going to have a little blast from the past. We're going to sing The Times They Are Changing. Now, you may remember all the words anyway, but it plays into what I want to talk about today. And the words will be on the screen with any luck. I invite you to stand and sing it as our koan song.
And keep your eyes wide, the chance won't come again. And don't speak too soon when the wheel's still in spin. Come gather round, people, wherever you roam, and admit that the water far beyond your command. Your old road is rapidly aging. Please get out of the new one if you can't lend your hand, for the times they are changing. The line it is drawn and the curse it is cast. The slowest one now will later be fast, and the present now will later be past. The order is rapidly fading, and the first one now will later be last, for the times they are changing.
Some of you still remember it.
When my scalp gets dry, I feel it in the roots, and my hair fall worsens.
Shush. For our reading, I have this short story. I don't know who the author is, entitled The Blind Girl. There was a blind girl who hated herself purely for the fact she was blind. The only person she didn't hate was her loving boyfriend, as he was always there for her. She said that if she could only see the world, she would marry him. One day, someone donated a pair of eyes to her. Now she could see everything, including her boyfriend. Her boyfriend asked her, now that you could see the world, will you marry me? The girl was shocked when she saw that her boyfriend was blind too, and refused to marry him. Her boyfriend walked away in tears and later wrote a letter to her saying, just take care of my eyes, dear. Change is inevitable. Growth is optional. I lived in 1964, I lived in a small town near the top of the Rockies, well over a mile high. 60 miles from a town of any size. It was the year I got my learner's permit to drive. Like most males of that age, I took every opportunity to practice driving our new car, our third. But the first one we had with an AM radio. As it was in the top 10 on the charts, I frequently heard Dylan's new hit, warning that the times, they are a-changing. Even at 15, that seemed obvious. It had only been 6 months since JFK was assassinated. As a country, we were still grieving. But whether we were ready or not for more change, 1964 was to be momentous. The Beatles kicked off the year, invading in February. The closest I got to them was watching them on the Ed Sullivan Show. You probably don't know what that is. But it was a very big shoe, as he used to say. Besides, I wasn't impressed and thought the Fab Four were just a flash in the pan fad. Little did I suspect I would have in my music library all of their albums by the time I was wondering who would still need me at 64. Nor did I suspect that my next birthday would be celebrated living in Los Angeles, going to a high school 6 times larger than my previous one. 1964 was a year of daily cultural and societal change, from the introduction of the Ford Mustang. Yes, I remember when and where I was when I saw my first one pass through town, to the passing of the Civil Rights Act and illegal segregation, from the ratcheting up of the Vietnam War to the first draft cards being burned, from Bob Dylan turning on the Beatles to weed, to the release of the film Mary Poppins, from Martin Luther King Jr. receiving the Nobel Prize to LBJ's war on poverty. While I was oblivious to much of what was happening outside the US, lots happened in New Zealand in '64 as well, including the arrival of the Beatles in June. Having partied earlier with Dylan in the US, they may have performed here stoned. For those of us of a certain age who were born here, you may remember some of these events. The Marsden Point Refinery and the Littleton Road Tunnel both opened. The fledgling anti-apartheid movement protested a cricket test between New Zealand and South Africa. And Auckland's population surpassed 500,000. 64 was also the year tram number 252, displaying the message "End of the line," traveled from Thorndon to Wellington Zoo for the last time, ending the use of electric trams in New Zealand. The Specialist Armed Offenders Squad was formed. Peter Snell took gold in the 800-meter and 1,500-meter events at the Tokyo Olympics. Whaling ended in New Zealand. Massey University was established, and the design for the Beehive was unveiled. Also, Kay Parrish was born. This walk down memory lane more than makes the point that change is constant and unavoidable, and as natural as breathing, or living for that matter. Even most of the cells in our body replace themselves eventually. Unfortunately, brain cells don't, making it impossible to forget the way it used to be or those poor choices we made in the past. Did I really once think bell bottoms and Nehru jackets were cool? There are essentially 2 kinds of change. The first is change we do not seek. Some change happens to us all, directly or indirectly, like disasters. Since my arrival in New Zealand, there have been a number. The Christchurch and Kaikoura earthquakes, the Pike River mine explosion, the tragic massacre at Christchurch Mosque, the COVID pandemic, and last week's Canterbury floods most quickly come to mind. Some change is more personal, like losing a job, being enmeshed in an abusive relationship, financial woe, the death of a loved one, or a disheartening diagnosis. The second is change we seek or hope for. A new grandchild, a better job, falling in love, getting our COVID vaccine, having another birthday instead of the alternative. But whether we seek a given change or not, we have many possible reactions. In general, present company accepted, my experience tells me most do not welcome change, no matter how resigned to it they are. You, however, must like change, You are Unitarian Universalists, a thing apart from more traditional, conservative religious folk. The latter are more like Calvin in the Calvin and Hobbes comic strip. As Calvin and Hobbes, his tiger friend, are riding down a hill at a breakneck speed in his wagon, Calvin announces, "I thrive on change." Nonplussed, Hobbes exclaims, "You?" He goes on to remind Calvin, "You threw a fit this morning because your mom put less jelly on your toast than yesterday." Calvin, unrepentant, explains further, "I thrive on making other people change." Unitarians are more like the visitors to a monastery in Europe, perched high on a cliff, hundreds of meters in the air. The only way to reach the monastery is in a basket, which is pulled to the top by monks who reel the basket up by muscle power alone. The ride up the steep cliff in that basket is terrifying. The visitor gets exceedingly nervous about halfway up as he notices the rope by which he is suspended is old and frayed. With a trembling voice, he asks the monk who is riding with him in the basket how often they change the rope. The monk thinks for a moment and answers brusquely, "Whatever breaks." Well, we may get nervous in our pursuit of change, but we are in the basket. Risk is an essential ingredient to embracing change. Throughout our history, we UUs have pushed for theological change, ethics instead of belief, reason instead of superstition, the facts of science instead of the wishful thinking of doctrinally imposed faith, the potential for human good instead of original sin, human responsibility instead of divine intervention, life in the here and now instead of life in the hereafter, and respect for the wisdom of all spiritual paths instead of the arrogance of my way or the highway, one true religion. Many go to Sunday worship to feel comfortable and complacent, to be reassured that what has always been will always be. This suggests they believe they have arrived at their spiritual destination. Unitarian Universalists come to be challenged, to stretch and grow, not to save our souls, but to grow them, to be transformed and to transform the world, to embark on a lifetime adventure of exploration and discovery, a journey that never ends. We believe in and are dedicated to change, which, of course, explains why we are amongst the smallest of New Zealand faith communities. That said, coping with change is hard. Even change we seek comes at a cost: grief. With every change, there is a loss. For instance, we might want the church to grow. I hear that a lot around here. But the loss is that we may no longer know everyone worshiping with us. Humans being human, we might want to change, but still we resist it. Barter for more time. Let's grow next year. Deny its necessity, even as we examine the frayed rope. We might want to embrace change willingly, but we would like it to sneak up on us, rather than our having to jump eyes wide open into the basket. But it doesn't work that way. Change isn't a choice, but a challenge to become who we really are. Every time we consider whether or not to trust the rope, there is an implied question. Are you ready to embody what you say you believe? How we respond to situations that present themselves determines what spiritual transformation will take place. That's the spiritual meaning of every change we face. Not what happens to us, but what we do with what happens to us, and who we decide to become because of what happens to us. Yes, it means taking a risk. But not taking it is a risk as well. The risk is the failure to grow from what we go through. Yes, the times are still a-changing, and so are we. I invite you to stand to sing our closing hymn, Standing on the Side of Love. It's time for notices. Do we have any? Good. Really?
Sorry, just a short one. Just to remind those committees to give us a short 5-minute resume of what you've been doing just through the year. Maybe we could have one every week, every other week. Keep us informed with what you're up to. A lot of us don't know what you're doing, like peace and social justice, the rental, the membership, those sort of committees. That would be great.
Okay, so we have choir practice at, well, not choir, we're singing group. So we don't do the 4-part harmony. At 11:45, and I think next week we're going to do our item. Oh. Thank you.
I'm so pleased. It's great to have people who enjoy just singing together be part of this congregation. I knew you couldn't stand it.
I was looking all around. I'm Betsy, and I was looking all around to see if Jonathan was here, because I don't mean to take his place. But I know if Jonathan were here, he would remind you all, if you haven't had a chance, to please submit your pledge form, how much you can pledge to support this wonderful community during this year. You can do it online directly, you can download a form, or you can find a form out on the desk in the entryway there, and just put it mark as confidential, my pledge, and put it in the offertory when it comes around. Thank you.
During our lockdown period on Zoom, we had as one of our speakers, Chris, I want to pronounce it correct, Hurley. Chris is the principal of the school that we have been involved with the Duffy Book Program. And we also, many of us also contributed to send children from his school to camp this year. Anyway, he's going to come and share that experience with us next week. And because it probably won't work otherwise, there won't be a Zoom service that week. So anyway, Chris is a great speaker, very enthusiastic. The kids are lucky to have him as a principal, and he's made a real difference at that school. So it'd be great if we're here to support him. Seems I forgot something. Let us say the words to extinguishing the chalice. Extinguish this flame. Let not the light of truth go forth in unity, for the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. My closing words. If you are who you were, and if the person next to you is who he or she was, if none of us has changed since the day we came in here, we have failed. The purpose of this community, of any church, temple, zendo, mosque, is to help people grow. We do this through encounters with the unknown in ourselves, in one another, in the other, whoever that might be for us, however hard that might be. Because these encounters have many gifts to offer. So may you go forth from here this morning, not who you were, but who you could be. So may we all. And after we hear the postlude from Frank, I invite you to be in groups of about 6. Don't cheat. To get to know whether you're the same as when you came in. And your conversation starter is in the order of service. And I'll see you on the other side of Zoom.